evening, and welcome to our panel discussion on navigating remote learning. My name is Malika Bussey, and I am the district's Family and Community Engagement Coordinator. Joining me this evening as our panelists is Ms. Angela Flowers and Ms. Deanna Davis. Ms. Flowers is a licensed independent social worker, business owner, author, community activist, life coach, motivational speaker, grant writer, and program developer. Ms. Flowers, co-founder of both Making a Difference Consulting and Children Family Therapeutic Solutions, a private practice clinical counseling agency, and has written a children's book, Footprints in the Sky, which was released in the spring of 2016. Ms. Flowers has been highlighted in Scene Magazine Most Interesting People in 2019, as well as Cleveland Cranes Magazine as 2019 Notable Woman in Entrepreneurship. Her signature specific groups, Divas, demonstrating intervalue, acceptance, and self-worth, and Boys to Men has been a success with adolescent youth. She teaches youth entrepreneurship skills through Youth Biz Academy. She has helped to transform the lives of thousands of teenagers and has been coined the Teen Talk Guru. Ms. Flowers empowers and inspires youth to find their inner value and worth by identifying their strengths and tapping into their potential. Ms. Flowers received her Master's of Science in Social Administration from Mendel School of Applied Sciences at Case Western Reserve University and her BS in Psychology from John Carroll University. Ms. Deanna Davis, a school psychologist who has worked for Making a Difference Consulting for the past 6 years and specializes in facilitating social skill groups and grief groups for students. She assists in developing interactive and engaging ways to teach students about academic achievement, conflict resolution, unhealthy and healthy relationships, and goal setting. As a school psychologist, she successfully collaborates with teachers in order to assist with academic and behavioral interventions for students in the classroom. Ms. Davis received her Master's of Science in School Psychology from Cleveland State University and her Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from Wheaton College. Thank you, ladies, for joining us, and let's get started. So, many of our families being in this remote environment has found it to be very difficult. Can you please share with us today some strategies parents can use while helping their child virtually?
Definitely. So one of the first strategies that I would like to share is for parents to familiarize themselves with the platforms that their children are using. And so if it means to create a cheat sheet for themselves and for their kids, I think that is something that is important. There are different videos that teachers have created within the district, but there are also different videos that you can use to access how to use the Google platform that Google has created as well. So just familiarizing yourself with those particular platforms is important. And so that's one of the strategies that teachers can use and that parents can use as well when they are thinking of their virtual environment for their young person. Another strategy that I would like to touch on is making sure that they have a schedule for their child. So looking at the child's schedule and mapping it out for the week, but also looking to see what assignments are due for the week is going to be key. That's important to make sure that you know what your child is actually going to be working on for the week and you can keep up with that pace of the workload, but also being able to communicate that with your child so that they understand your expectations of what needs to be done for the week. So that schedule helps you to stay organized, but it's so key in making sure that you're okay and your child is okay because the expectation is being set there. Ms. Davis, do you want to add on to that as far as the schedule piece?
Sure. I also would incorporate, when you can, some breaks in the schedule to ensure that you can reduce frustration. I think the more you can reduce frustration during the day, the better. So to go along with the schedule, providing, if you can, a separate mouse to reduce some of the frustration from using the mouse pad. Also a dry erase board to just to have another way to kind of take notes, separate from a piece of notebook paper. And just to stay in constant communication, both with the teachers and your child, so they understand what's going on. And again, to reinforce those expectations for sure.
Definitely. Another strategy that parents can utilize with navigating this virtual place is making sure that the child has a nice working space. So, an environment that's going to be conducive to learning, you want to make sure that it's an environment where the lighting is good. So, sometimes too bright of a light may hurt the child. It may make them have headaches. So, you want to make sure that the lighting in that particular area is it's a good lighting, but then you also want to be able to have a space where there is a table or a desk. Now, I know that some families may not have that table space or a desk for their child, but there are some other types of things that you can do to be savvy and creative for that type of space. So Michael's has these plastic lap desks. They're $7.99. It could be ordered online. So that's something that you can use. But you also want to ensure that the environment or the space that your child is going to use for their online learning has everything that they need to be successful. So you want to have all of their supplies set out already. You want to make sure that this space has notebook paper if they need notebook paper, the dry erase board that Ms. Davis just referenced for math equations and problems. If they have to have crayons or markers or ink pens, you want to have that all in one space as well, so that they know that all of their supplies are there. Their laptop device or iPad or whatever they're using to log in is there. But then you have posted that schedule that we just talked about so that they can have easy access to it. And that's going to make the environment a little less frustrating for them, but then also it allows for consistency. So if the environment is the same each day in the same place, then they know this is where I go to work on work. This is where I go to study. And so I think that having that environment is key. If you have multiple children, you can also set up some workstations for your children. And what that can look like is even going to the dollar store and getting some of those science trifolds. You can even make sure that with the trifolds, that if you have a table, those trifolds are set up for that child's individual work area.
I would also add, in addition, what you can put on the trifold is I definitely want to reinforce positive reinforcement and positive affirmations. And some suggestions could be having a quote of the day just to encourage your student or students throughout the day, putting some positive feedback on their pencils so they can see it as they're writing, or putting post-it notes on the trifold as well, just to just encourage them. It's so important to provide that positive reinforcement.
Another strategy too, just to go along with the affirmations and encouragement, starting your morning off with something positive. So if your child is getting up, they're used to having a morning meeting. So when they go into the classroom, they're used to talking about what the day is going to look like and having that. But as a parent, if you are able to encourage some of those affirmations with, what is your goal for the day? So asking your child those type of questions. What is your goal for the day? Who can help you meet that goal for the day? Is there anything that I can do to help you meet that goal? And so what you're doing is you're prepping them to have a good day. And so the way that their morning starts off will be a reflection of how the first half of their morning goes. So you want to make sure that you minimize distractions in the morning time. And you also want to, if there are multiple children in the house and you notice that there may be arguments or things like that, before they log on, you want to debrief that. You want to de-escalate them so that they can actually have a good morning for the day. So being able to start off with positivity and making sure that they can speak those positive affirmations is key.
One more thing I want to point out as well is just being honest with your child and knowing that they're not alone. So say, for instance, you are working and you have a difficult project. share with that with your child. Say that this is not easy for anyone, and we're all in this together. Just to be transparent with your child, so they know that they can relate to you.
Definitely. One other strategy too that parents can do and use to check on their child is just making sure that you're up to date on the assignments, what may be missing, but not overreacting and not panicking. So your demeanor and how you think about the virtual environment is going to be a direct reflection on your child. And so we understand that it is challenging and difficult. And so we want to remain as calm as possible so that we're modeling that for our children.
I would also say to give yourself grace. Each day, everything may not always go as planned, but give yourself grace and just have compassion for the situation. And just know there is the next day. You can get to it. You'll get more accomplished. But definitely give yourself grace in this time because it's not easy. But again, being calm is key.
And realizing and recognizing that you're doing the best that you can. So being optimistic, this is a pandemic, this is unexpected. But as long as you come in with a positive attitude and just realizing that you're doing the best that you can, then it will work out. It'll work itself out. And if there are difficulties, making sure that you're reaching out to say that you're having some difficulties with things. And that is something that will allow the virtual environment to work better. Just being able to ask for that support. People are going to be willing to give you support. There may be other strategies that other parents can give and bounce off to you. And so talking and keeping that community group with some of the other parents is going to be key too to helping you with this virtual environment. But being aware if you are having difficulties that someone else may be having the same difficulty. So making sure that you're throwing the questions out there of what should I do? How can I navigate this? What resources are available?
So, Ms. Flowers, you kind of started to go down the line of talking about mental health and coping skills. Are there any other ways or suggestions that you may have for our families and our parents that can help them cope during this particular time?
Definitely. So awareness is key. That's the first step. Being aware if you feel overwhelmed and if you're anxious about this learning environment. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, you want to be able to reach back and say, okay, what can I take off of my plate that is not something that is necessary in this moment and space so that I'm not as stressed? So being able to recognize stress is important. I think that mental health is so key, not only during the pandemic, but in general. Our mental wellness is so important that we need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, but then also that we are recognizing if our child is having difficulties with their mental health. So there are certain signs that you can look for to see if you're overwhelmed or if your child is overwhelmed. So if you are easily tired and you are not able to want to do your normal activities, that's going to be a sign that you're either too stressed out or that something else is going on with you. Especially in this fall season, seasonal affect depression is so high because of our lack of sunlight and certain vitamins that we want to pay close attention if we are starting to feel down during this time period. That may be a red flag that something else is going on with your mental health as well. If you are noticing a withdrawal in your child, if they're normally bubbly, but now that they are constantly frustrated with the online learning and you start to recognize that they're becoming more aggressive, that's going to be a red flag too, that something else is going on with them. And it may just be the opportunity for you to talk to them about their feelings and how they feel like they are doing with navigating the platform, but also socially, how they are doing without being able to go into the school building, connect with their friends. And if you start to see those signs, then you definitely may want to just talk to your child or reach out for additional support services that the school may have. Another thing or another sign that you can recognize if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you feel as if something else is going on with your child's mental health is just paying attention to their body language and things that they're doing around the house. So if normally they tend to stay to themselves, then that's not anything unusual. But if they are social and you're starting to see that they don't even want to communicate with you when you're asking questions and they're more moody, then that's going to be a red flag for you as well.
Sometimes in younger students, you might see temper tantrums, or with older students, you might see um, outbursts of anger as well. Just want to point that out.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you. Ms. Davis had begun to talk a little bit in our initial question about balancing work and that virtual classroom. Many of our families are either going to work physically outside of the home or having to work while their child is at home with them during their virtual classroom. Can you share some suggestions or strategies that might be helpful for our families in balancing that work and virtual classroom?
Yes. So I do want to stress again, just giving yourself grace during this time, and really creating a plan throughout your day. So if you are one of those parents who you leave for the day and your student is either at an academic support group or at home with older siblings or with a grandparent or things like that, I would just kind of make a plan for your evening. So if you have 2 to 3 hours in the evening, make a plan and incorporate breaks and maybe some fun activities to kind of work through those assignments with your student, to just give yourself a plan and to ease some of that stress of getting everything done. I would also encourage you to establish a support network. If you do have family members who can sometimes help or to sit in, still remaining safe and using safe guidelines to sit in and kind of give you a break, and you all can work together to get through some of the assignments. I think that that's a great way to get through the assignments as well.
Even with balancing that as well, you want to make sure you're incorporating some relaxation techniques. So, if it means that you are learning to meditate or do some deep breathing, you can find some excellent resources on YouTube with meditation music and with deep breathing techniques. And that's going to be something that you can also do with your child, so that they are learning how to self-regulate their emotions. And so deep breathing, definitely, it reduces stress, but then it also gives you that sense of connection with your child if you're doing it together. So if you are a working parent, being able to take some of those mindful breaks and just taking a break is important. Taking a lunch is important. When we're at work, sometimes we may be checking emails, doing lunch at the same time. And if you are working from home, then you are checking on that child with virtual learning. You are doing the work that you're trying to get done for the day in a timeline, and you may not even take a break and may not even realize how much stress that causes on yourself. So taking a break for yourself is important. Being able to take that time to separate home from work. So if you're working from home, if taking your break means sitting on the porch for 10 minutes or sitting in the car for 15 minutes and just deep breathing and relaxing and listening to music, that's going to be key to helping you with relaxation, but also with creating some type of boundary between that work life and home life. And that's going to be key. There has to be some type of reset button once you are off the clock. So if you put into your day that you're going to stop doing work at 6 p.m., that means that you're not opening emails. It means that you're not taking out that laptop. You really are going to set some key boundaries for yourself so that there is that time for you to relax for yourself, but also connect with your family. And so it's difficult if you're working at home, but if you are working more than one job and you have limited time, you still need to make sure you are balancing self-care for yourself. And the way self-care works in different realms, there are different areas of self-care that as parents, we need to make sure that we are tapping into. And that could be your physical self-care. So are you exercising? Are you taking a walk? Are you making sure that you are physically active so that you are able to reduce some of that stress? Psychologically, what are you saying to yourself? Are you beating yourself up because this academic environment is overwhelming and too much? Or are you telling yourself affirmations like, I'm doing the best that I can? I'm working through this. This is new. Everyone else is working through this. So you want to make sure that psychologically you are not putting in those negative comments and those negative thoughts, because then it will make everything seem more overwhelming than what it is. Emotionally, what are you taking in emotionally? So, do you have help? Have you identified your support network? Are there other people within your extended family that are able to assist you during this time with virtual learning with your child or your children? Are you able to reflect, journal? Are you practicing some of these relaxation techniques? And if you are not, are you able to commit to 5 minutes a day? And you can start off with 5 minutes and you can gradually increase that to 10 minutes of self-care for yourself, to where it becomes a normal practice where you don't have to say, oh, I need self-care this weekend. I need to do something for me. But if you're taking those little increments every day, then that's something that you won't feel too overwhelmed, because now it becomes a normal routine in your day. If you are spiritual, what are you doing in the spiritual realm to make sure you are taking care of you and balancing it out? In your work life, your professional life, are you able to say no to some things? Can you delegate some of those activities? If you have older children, are you allowing them to do some chores at home so that you're not doing everything? If you're able to meal prep so that you don't have to come home and cook, are you able to do that to where it takes something off of the plate for that particular day? So you want to look at your self-care in all aspects of these different areas. We will be given a resource that can be posted on a self-care wheel. So it gives different activities, different ideas of ways that you as a parent can take care of you. But there are also suggestions that you can use for your child with that self-care wheel.
And there are even things you can do as a family too. So game nights, movie nights, even having time as a family to kind of reflect on the week and see, okay, what can we do better next week? I think that's a great way as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think all of those things are so important. I think what the pandemic has done, it has allowed for more opportunities for that family connection and that family time. And so that's very important. I think that you have shared some wonderful strategies and techniques for balancing it. And a key thing that stood out for me is just that really planning and working through some things to help balance that workload and thinking ahead to kind of take off some of those pressures of our everyday lives. So thank you so much for sharing that. So as we continue to move forward in this remote learning experience, what are some ways that parents can help their child stay engaged in their learning? You know, they're watching and paying attention on a screen for a long time, and that's somewhat difficult when you think about our younger kids all the way up to our high schoolers who are trying to manage that. What are some ways that we can help them stay engaged in their learning?
One way that you can help them stay engaged, if you know that your child has some attention difficulties, maybe having some type of stress ball in their environment will help them to focus a little bit. So something that they're able to squeeze, or a fidget spinner. Another thing is looking at their seating. So there are some children that have sensory issues and they may need a different type of chair because they're sitting there for all of those hours. And so if you are able to get some of those, the little cushions with the prongs on it, it's something that definitely will help them stay focused and stay engaged as well. So I think that some of those tools are different things that can be utilized, but also just being able to keep your child excited about learning. And so looking at what their interests are and still tapping into that. And so if you know that your child is interested in art, then how can you incorporate other art things into their environment? But looking at what their learning style is so key and so important to helping them stay engaged. And when we think about learning style, there are 3 different types of learning styles. We have some children that are visual learners. And so the computer screen for them is going to be something that they're okay with because they like to see things. They like to navigate visually that way. We have some kids that are auditory learners. And so hearing instructions or hearing what you're saying and you're giving them positive feedback and affirmations is going to help them to stay engaged. So telling them, good job. I saw that you turned everything in today. So giving them some of that feedback for them is important. But then you have some kids that like to do, they're kinesthetic learners. So they like the hands-on projects. So if you are checking into your child's workload and you notice that in science class that they're talking about different leaves outside, maybe going outside and taking a walk and picking up some leaves, and you guys are doing some type of project with it. So you are helping to extend the learning, but you're incorporating things that your child enjoys to make it fun and exciting. And so how we speak about what's going on in the classroom and the workload is going to be a direct reflection on how our child receives it. So we always want to make sure that we are encouraging, we are positive with it. And if there are new things that your child is learning that they share with you, you can even say, oh, I didn't even know that. And it gets your child excited to where they want to share more. So just definitely having those conversations about the work is important, because it's a good way too to gauge what they are actually learning and retaining.
I agree. And then if you are unsure of how to make learning fun, I would definitely lean on your teachers. The teachers want to hear from you. They want to help, and I would lean on them, and let them know who you are, and reach out to them when you need that additional support or some advice about what to do.
Even with leaning on the teachers have office hours. And so you want to try to encourage your child too to check in with their teacher, even if they don't have questions. So encouraging them at least once a week to use that office hour time or that Google Classroom Meet time to be able to say, hey, I don't really have questions. I just wanted to share something I learned this week or something I enjoyed this week. So you always want to keep that interest with your child to make sure that they are able to communicate and advocate for themselves. It empowers them to reach out to their teacher, whether it's through email, whether it's through a phone call, or even if it's just, hey, I'm going to that particular meeting to share something from the week that I enjoyed. But it also gives the teacher a sense that your child is connecting with them, and that, you know, if they do have questions later on, that they know that that support is there for them.
Yes, I think that is so important as we think and start to talk a little bit about building relationships and connecting virtually. It is very difficult to do that in a remote setting. And we know that relationships matter. We know that relationships are important. We know that our students thrive from those positive relationships with their teachers. So I appreciate you sharing some ways that our children can connect. And those office hours, which we have here in Southeastern Lyndhurst, is very important. I encourage our families to use it. I encourage our children, our students to use it. I know our teachers are willing to help. They want to help. They want to be there for our students. And they too recognize the difficulties that students may be having navigating this remote learning. So thank you again for sharing that. As I think about academics, I think about learning, I think about retaining information. What are some ways parents can ensure that their student has academic integrity? And what I mean by that is, you know, it's easy to Google and find answers, but is that really learning, right? Are they really retaining and taking in? What are some suggestions you have in that particular area in a remote setting?
Well, one thing that I would encourage parents to do is, again, be familiar with the content, what their child is learning. So you're able to ask some of those questions, those guiding questions. And so even if it means that you are creating practice quizzes to ask your child different questions, or you're using index cards for new vocabulary words that they may be learning for the week, that's a great way to be able to show that they have retained some information, because you're having a conversation with your child, you're asking them some details. Maybe you have already looked over what they're doing for the week briefly, not in too much detail, but you kind of know what they're working on. So then you can ask some of those key questions. I would say do it daily. So even if it's during dinner time, or if it's before they go to bed, just asking like, well, what was something interesting you learned today? So being able to gauge some of those questions, because you're right. it's very easy to copy and paste off Google or to search for the answer. And it can become frustrating if there are tests later on and you're not able to recall that information. So creating and helping your child create a study plan is something that I feel like is key. And the study plan could just be outside of what they are doing online. Let's take about 20 or 30 minutes to really look into more detail about what you're doing. So you actually are studying some of that content. You actually are allowing them to use highlighters. They're writing out some of the information. The more that you write things out, the more you are able to retain it, and allowing them to read it out loud, because it helps with fluency, it helps with their reading skills, but also you are able to see that they are retaining some of that information. If they are able to create their own book report, or you have them do a presentation, a mini 2-3 minute presentation, that will help with integrity because they know that you're checking on this particular work. So when you actually set that expectation with your child and let them know that you are checking on the work and you are able to monitor online what's missing and what's not, then they know that, okay, this is important. It's important to my parent. It's important to me. Let me make sure that I am actually reading through and not just picking answers just to get done quickly.
I agree. In addition, just whenever possible, again, incorporating their interest in learning. I think that the more that a student is interested in what is being assigned, the better it is, the more they'll be willing to put in that extra work. And then in addition, if something is, if it's a subject that might be a little more difficult or a little more challenging or not as fun for the student, it may help to incorporate a reward. And it doesn't always have to be something you purchase. It could be, okay, if we finish this math assignment, you can have 20 minutes of computer time, just to, again, reinforce the academic integrity and getting the work completed.
Even with that reward system, that could be something that as a family, you all sit down and do. You can make a reward jar where everyone kind of puts down some of the items or things that they would like to do. It could be 5 minutes of alone time. If you have multiple children, sometimes it's difficult to have alone time with each one of your child. And so if they're able to complete all of that work that week, maybe that's something that they earn as an incentive, is some of that alone time with you. And so I think that allowing them to have a voice in what some of those rewards may be is something that is key too. But then you can also have some type of chart so that you're able to monitor what they did and allow them to put the markers up that, hey, I completed math today, I did science today, this is what's due. So it gives them a visual representation to where they're not too overwhelmed with what might be due, and just knowing that you have time to complete some of these activities. Let's plan it out so it's not too much at one time. But I definitely feel as if you have to be directly involved, but then also have your child get excited about the information and things like that, and letting them know how important education is and that it's their vehicle, especially to their future. So whatever it is that they say is their future plan or their future goal, always making sure that you constantly are reinforcing that to say, okay, if you want to be a doctor, then what do you feel like is something that needs to happen? So constantly going back to whatever their short-term or long-term goals for their self is. And we know that it may change throughout their years as they grow, but then also saying, okay, well, what do we need to do to get there? Are grades important? Having them do a little bit of research to see what they need to have in order to get to where they want to be. And so I think that gives them more incentive because they know what the expectation is to get to where they want to be later on in life, whether they're elementary, middle school, or high school. Being able to talk to them about what some short-term goals are and then some longer-term goals and how important education is in any of the goals that they set.
I agree. Goal setting is really important, and not only for our children, but for our adults as well. I tend to also, and I'm sure you do as well, set some goals for yourself and to try to meet those particular goals, both short-term and long-term. So I would encourage our families to continue to do some goal setting for sure. So one of the struggles with remote learning or in learning in general, um, is students falling behind in their work and in their studies. They're trying to manage a lot of different things in that remote setting. How can parents help their child catch up if they are feeling behind and overwhelmed?
I think the first thing is reaching out to the teacher and letting the teacher know that the child is behind, they're a little overwhelmed, and communicating that. So then, as the work is turned in, the teacher knows that they are still working on those things, but they're having some difficulties right now. It may be a family situation going on to where the child was not able to get some of the work done. And so I think communication is going to be key first. And then also the parent just letting the child know, I understand it's difficult. We're just going to do what we can do today. Tomorrow is a whole new reset day, and we will continue to add on to what you are doing. But you still are setting those expectations and letting them know that, I still want you to work. If they are struggling, you want to be able to offer some different types of resources. And so there are different things that parents can put into place to help their child succeed, whether it's actual tutoring, whether it is, which there are some great virtual tutoring options that South Euclid Library offers with their homework center. Even though the homework center is not in operation in person like it normally would be, the homework center is available from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, where if your child needs homework assistance or they have a question, they can call into the homework center and they will have someone that's dedicated to helping them navigate through whatever the question is. There is also an online resource, tutor.com. If your child has a library card, they're able to access this resource that the library has purchased in order to help with tutoring, academic tutoring. There are also some other places that are offering Saturday programs virtually on Zoom, of course, but it's individualized tutoring to help your child that may be struggling. So you want to know what resources are available in the community, but virtually also. Cleveland State also has a wonderful free program where they are offering 30 minutes to 1 hour of tutoring services for 15 weeks straight. So there are options out there if your child is struggling and you want to get them some type of assistance.
I agree. And I would just encourage to avoid being overwhelmed is to maybe plan out if there are several subjects that are missing assignments, to catch up in math today, and then we'll catch up in reading tomorrow, just to avoid being overwhelmed, just to kind of reduce the frustration for both child and parent.
And also, and this is something that I struggled with online learning with my son last year. Please, please, please do not be the helicopter parent where you are hovering over those missing assignments, or you're constantly bringing it up to where they shut down. And you will start to see a shutdown within their face, but then their body language as well. And so they're already overwhelmed and aware that they're overwhelmed and struggling. So you want to reduce some of that stress and be more understanding and patient with them. And so just understanding and knowing like, okay, they're behind. It's okay. They still have time within the weeks to try to catch up. It's a pandemic, so people are understanding that things are happening around us. And just knowing and realizing that even though you have that expectation for your child, just saying, okay, they obviously may be working to the best of their ability right now in this space, and being okay with that, but still continuing to stress the importance of your expectation, but allowing them to get there and make it to that expectation. So reducing yelling. If you're a yeller and you're like, hey, this needs to get done, and you get frustrated because you have asked them multiple times to do it, it could be that maybe you write it down and you have a post-it note to say, this is what I need you to do today. If you can get through this today, this is great. We'll work on something else tomorrow. But allowing them to continue to work on what's due that day and trying to add one or two things that is overdue to the list. But again, if you're able to incorporate some type of resources for them, that may help them, because sometimes our children may be struggling with reading. They may be on an IEP and need additional assistance as well. And so if they already were struggling prior to the pandemic, then knowing that they may still struggle while we are on virtual learning. And so setting up some of those resources and reaching out to the school to say, this is what they're struggling with. What can you offer us? Do you know of anything else that we can utilize? Reaching out to their school counselors, reaching out to the family and community department to say what else is available.
And if your child is on an IEP or receives some specialized instruction, just being aware and reminding yourself of what some of those accommodations are, so that they can continue to get those services, even though we're virtual as well. And also watching the signs. I know for me and my son, I can watch the signs, watch his body language when I know it's time to either take a break or be done for the day, because he's not going to be retaining the information if he's so overwhelmed or frustrated in that moment.
Yeah, I think, just speaking firsthand, not being a helicopter parent sometimes is very difficult, because we do care. We want them to succeed. We want to ensure that they are getting all of their assignments done. And really, it's unhealthy for us as well, and becomes overwhelming if that's what our main focus is. It's just about that grade and that report, and we forget about the things that's happening in between. So thank you so much for that feedback. As we begin to wrap up this evening with our panel discussion, I do want to give both of you the opportunity to share any final words or suggestions with our viewers this evening, as we again continue. As we know right now, we're going to still be in this pandemic. We're still dealing with remote learning. Any final thoughts?
I just want to say, if your child is struggling, especially socially, maybe creating some opportunities for them to socially distance, but still engage with their friends. Because we know that, especially during elementary and middle school, even high school, how important friendship groups and socializing is. You want to create some of those opportunities where they can meet up, even if it means that they have their own private virtual Zoom party and they're able to connect that way, where we're not talking about anything academic, but they're talking just about what they miss about their friends. So creating some of those structured opportunities for your child to engage socially, because socialization is so important and key that almost everyone during the pandemic, even if you were an extrovert and an introvert, you're missing something with socializing. So keeping an eye on that, but creating those opportunities. And then just, again, creating a plan. It all starts with a plan. So planning your day out, planning your week out, just helping your child plan things out, whether it means to show them how to use a daily planner or to have certain timers set on the phone to ring out so that they have their own breaks and things like that, but creating a plan. And the third thing is just self-care, taking care of you so that you can take care of them. So that is so important. And it definitely needs to be high priority. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So you want to make sure that you are energizing yourself with things that make you feel good, things that helps to reduce stress for you, but then you are taking care of you and your self-talk, what you are thinking to yourself and what you are speaking out is positive.
I agree. I was just going to say positive self-talk. Don't beat yourself up. Give yourself grace. Know that you're not alone. Just remembering to reach out when you need help and support. It's just so important. And again, that socialization piece, be it may with your student, with his or her friends, or just with the teacher. Continuing to make those connections when you can.
Awesome, ladies. I so want to thank you for this evening. Thank you for sharing some strategies with us as we navigate remote learning. We look forward to future conversations here in SEL. And at this time, we are going to conclude. And I would like to, again, thank you for your time. I would like to thank our families who joined us this evening as well. It is my hope that you were able to take something away from this particular conversation and be able to add and do in your own personal life. If you have any follow-up questions or you would like additional information regarding tonight's topics, please send an email to studentservices@sel.k12oh.oh.us. Again, thank you to Ms. Davis and Ms. Flowers, and we wish everyone a great evening. Thank you.